which is why we have invited Wolfger Mayrhofer from the Permanent Secretariat of the Alpine Convention to give us here a keynote and a good overview on what it means to live and to operate and maybe also to work in an alpine and mountain forest. Wolfger, may I ask you to start your presentation? You will have about 15 to 20 minutes and I will watch the time a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Florian. Let me share my screen with you. And so it worked because we had a very useful testing session yesterday. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and greetings from the Tyrol. I'm glad to be here with you today, and I joined with pleasure because as a legal advisor of the Alpine Convention, I'm convinced that the convention can provide very interesting elements to the topic of your conference on the use and the management of non-native trees. Let me start with making you familiar with the structure of my presentation. First, I will present some basic facts concerning the forests in the Alpine region. Then I will deal with the provisions of the Alpine Convention regarding the mountain forests. And in the end, I would like to tell about some activities of the convention related to mountain forests in the climate change. This first picture shows already the diversity of land cover in the Alpine region. This is obvious when looking at it. It's a satellite photo taken from 20 kilometers above sea levels. In more detail, this map shows the different types of land cover in the Alps. We have arable land, pastures, of course, forests, very green, the map, open spaces with little or no vegetation, glaciers, moors and wetlands, and of course also artificial surfaces such as settlements or surfaces dedicated to traffic. Forests cover around 46% of the Alpine territory. And when I'm talking about the Alpine territory, I'm talking about the perimeter of the Alpine Convention, which is more or less the core Alpine area, which is much less than the area of the Alpine Space program, or even lesser than the area of the European strategy for the Alpine region. Forest cover is lower in the Western and in the Central Alps. Due to the respective climate conditions, the Western and Southern parts of the Alps have more varieties of tree species than those in the north and in the east. In the west and in the south, we can find silver fir, oak, chestnut, while in the north and the east, spruce is prevailing. Now let me come to the convention itself. It consists of a framework convention and of several thematic protocols, one of them being a specific protocol on mountain forests. The framework convention sets general objectives, while the protocols contain specific objectives and measures. As regards the legal density, this varies. This varies from very hardcore obligations. The parties are obliged to do something, to simple recommendations without a real commitment. For example, I don't know, contracting parties examine whether a measure X should be implemented. Yeah? The protocol on mountain forests is in force in all Alpine states, apart from Switzerland and Monaco. And at the difference of other protocols of the Alpine Convention, is not part of the EU law, because the EU was not legally competent to sign this protocol. We have also within the system of the Alpine Convention several political declarations, non-binding legal sources that relate to forests, such as the Declaration on Climate Change, of course, green economy, sustainable water management, and the protection of biodiversity. The general objectives regarding to forests are the preservation, reinforcement, and restoration of the role of forests by improving the resistance of forest ecosystems, mainly by applying natural forestry techniques and preventing any utilization detrimental to forest. This is very general, and this is quite broad thing. And this general objective is specified in the protocols. What is important is that sustainable management of forests is a cross-cutting issue. I think this is not a surprise to you. And this means that relevant provisions can be found not only in the specific protocol on mountain forests, but also in other protocols, spatial planning, nature conservation, soil protection, mountain farming, tourism, and energy. Let me give an example. Let me give the example of the soil protection protocol. There is the Article 14 called Effects of Tourism Infrastructures. And there we have the provision that permits for the construction and the leveling of ski runs in forests with protective functions are granted only in exceptional cases, and with the provision that compensatory action is taken, and that such permits are not granted for fragile areas, and fragile areas meaning in the sense of soil conservation. Let me come now to the specific protocol on mountain forests. This protocol is applicable to all forests within the scope of application of the Alpine Convention. This means all forests within the scope of application of the Alpine Convention are considered as mountain forests. Yeah? We have in the articles 1, 2, and 11 defined the fundamental obligations, preserving mountain forests as a near natural habitat and improving their stability, managing mountain forests in a careful, sustainable way close to nature, adopting methods of natural reforestation, ensuring that forests are well structured and layered with 3 species suited to their location. And now we are coming also to another obligation, which might be a little bit conflicting with the use of non-native trees, because the obligation is to use indigenous forest reproduction material. And when we took a closer look at this provision contained in the first article of the Mountain Forest Protocol, we can say that exceptions are possible because such indigenous forest reproduction material shall be used only above all. Yeah. In any case, the used tree types should be suited to the location. Then another obligation concerns the avoidance of erosion and soil compaction, and provision of incentives and compensation for forestry activities. And of course, this is let's say the cross-cutting approach of the Alpine Convention. All these objectives of the Mountain Forest Protocol should be taken into account in the other policies. In order to complement the picture, I would like to present you 4 other important provisions of the Protocol on Mountain Forests. regarding the protective functions of mountain forests, the economical function, the social and ecological function of mountain forests, and the natural forest reserves. As regards the protective forests, the contracting party shall undertake to give priority to the protective function, focusing the forest management to that purpose. These forests, and this is a very clear obligation, must be conserved on site. As regards the economical function, the parties shall ensure that the mountain forest economy can continue its role as a source of employment and income for the local population. We have this idea also reflected in the protocol on mountain farming, that mountain farming and mountain forestry are considered as a sort of, let's say, unit. Then, as regards the social and ecological functions, measures should be adopted in that regard. This concerns the effectiveness of the function of forests for water resources, climate balance, cleaning the air and noise protection, biological diversity, and of course, recreation function, enjoyment of nature. And also Article 10 of the Protocol on Mountain Forests obliges the contracting parties to define natural forest reserves in a sufficient number and state. Okay, now I'm shifting to the most important contemporary subject, which is climate change. Climate change is affecting the Alps more severely than other areas. Indeed, consequences of a changing climate can already be observed in the Alps, where the increase of temperature was nearly double compared to the northern hemisphere and with the other parts of Europe. Temperatures have increased by almost 2 degrees Celsius since the late 19th century, and by the end of our century, from 31 to 51% of alpine plant species are projected to lose more than 80% of their suitable habitat, which means that vegetation belts shift upwards. What does this mean for our mountain forests? They are faced with multifold challenges. Changes in precipitation and temperature regimes, such as wetter winters, drier summers, as well as more frequent and intense climate extremes, will influence the forests directly. Forest fires, wind blasts can be mentioned as examples, and indirectly as a consequence of warming, forest damaging insects such as bark beetle calamities and diseases will occur more frequently. Then, as regards the productivity, we have longer vegetation periods. This is likely to rise the productivity in most mountain forests, as the high altitude limit of forests is expected to shift upwards. In low-lying locations, on the contrary, dry periods and pests are expected to lower the productivity of sites and to change the composition of trees fundamentally. Here again, we might encounter the problem of reforestation with indigenous trees versus non-native trees. Another long-term scenario for the future assumes that due to more snow and heavy snowfall, the risk of avalanches will increase at high altitude, but will decrease in low-lying areas because of lower amounts of snow and more rain in winter. Other natural hazards, such as rockfall, are said to occur more frequently. What is the response of the Alpine Convention to these challenges? Based on several previous activities, such as the adoption of a first declaration on climate change in 2006 and an action plan on climate change in 2009. The ministers in charge of the Alpine Convention identified in 2016 taking action on climate change as one of the 6 priorities in the multi-annual work program, and decided to establish an Alpine Climate Board in order to bundle together existing climate change initiatives and contributions. This Alpine Climate Board elaborated a concrete climate target system of the convention. This has been endorsed by the 15th Alpine Conference in 2019, focusing on soft but verifiable objectives for the horizon 2015, with the aim of enhancing the added value of Alpine-wide cooperation. And at the same time, at this conference was adopted the Declaration of Innsbruck, committing the parties to develop further the Alpine region as a model region for comprehensive and integrated climate mitigation and adaptation. Now let's come to the details of this climate target system. It's setting 4 concrete objectives to be met in the field of mountain forests. The potential of protective mountain forests is fully used in 2050. Mountain forests are adapted to climate change and maintain their positive role as carbon sink. The conversion of forest ecosystems to close to nature forest is achieved using endemic forest species adapted to climate change, and a prioritized sustainable forest management is fully implemented. After having set these targets in the field of mountain forests in the last 2 years, these objectives were further developed to so-called implementation pathways, ensuring a smart sequencing and combination of actions and identifying actions with amplifying effects. This resulted in the climate action plan, the next version, the updated version of the climate action plan, which was adopted by the last Alpine Conference, Ministerial Conference in December last year, where specific actions were prioritized in 10 sectors. As regards the forests, we shall develop scenarios for forests, also with for the tree species and the climate changes. Then guidelines for alpine forest conversion shall be developed with the aim of increasing the resilience of forests to climate change, with concrete examples of trees and management techniques. Then possible schemes for providing financial support for resilient forestry based on endemic spaces shall be developed. These payments should incentivize forest owners and management to plant or continue to grow such endemic species. And then we have as a 4th priority the promotion of regional and local use of wood from alpine forests. These priorities in the climate action plan, in the updated climate action plan, focus on the medium-term horizon, which is the next 5 to 10 years. What are the current activities of the parties in this field? The Alpine Climate Board continues to work, continues and starts implementing this Climate Action Plan 2.0 and the Alpine Climate Target System by accompanying partnership through meetings, by putting into effect a specific website for alpine activities in the field of, not only in the field of forests, and by supporting networks of stakeholders, such as the Alpine Partnership for Local Climate Action, which is a cooperation of municipalities network alliance in the Alps, Alpine Town in the Year of the Year, and CIPRA International. And then we have also established a working group on mountain agriculture and mountain forests, which is currently developing a status report on sustainable value chains in forestry and farming in selected sectors and regions. Let me come to my last slide. The Alpine Convention is also active within the European Strategy for the Alpine Region, USALP, in our function of co-leader of Action Group 6, together with Carinthia. Action Group 6 deals with the preservation and valorization of natural resources, including water and cultural resources. And the work plan of Action Group 6 includes several activities related to forests. We have actions related to protection and valorization of alpine landscapes. We will commission a study and organize a big conference, a USALP landscape conference, hopefully in the second half of 21. Then the Action Group 6 will contribute to the strategic priority policy area spatial planning, which is a true cross-sectoral activity where all the action groups are involved. And the Action Group 6 will also contribute to the USALP Task Force on Multifunctional Forests and Sustainable Use of Timber. I will not go into details because the coordinators of this task force, Multifunctional Forests and Sustainable Use of Timber, and members of AG6, Gian Antonio Battistel and Christian Hoffmann, will present the USALP forestry activities at the end of session 2 this afternoon. Now, I've come to an end, and I'd like to thank you for your attention. And of course, I'm ready to answer questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Wolfger. This was great presentation and a very detailed overview on all the agreements and declarations that within the Alpine Convention are active. I think it's quite difficult to have an overview as somebody who doesn't deal with that on a daily basis. So it was really useful. We are a non-native tree species project. So we are dealing with this very big challenge, I would say. And from what I understood is that the Alpine Convention has also thought about these kind of tree species. For our participants here, the first question, and again, let me repeat, please put your questions into the chat so that we can put them forward to the presenters. The first starting question, so to say, would be, can you please again highlight what's the attitude of the Alpine Convention vis-a-vis non-native tree species, because you highlight climate change, and this is also a very specific topic where we think that non-native tree species might be part of a solution. So this is the first question, and then we have already a second one, which I will place right after.
Okay. Yes. As regards the general attitude, I think it's clear that the Alpine Convention and the Mountain Forest Protocol focus on indigenous, on native trees. But as I already said, this obligation contained in Article 1 para 2 of the Mountain Forest Protocol is not, let's say, a very hardcore obligation, because it allows exceptions. Yeah. As regards climate change, I think the experts within the Alpine Convention are very well aware that also non-native tree species could be a part of the solution regarding the adaptation to climate change. But let's say we will have to see whether these kind of trees will really be, let's say, suitable to the location, because it's the question is not only using native or non-native trees. That the main focus of I would say lots of provisions is that the used tree types should be suited to the location, and I think this could, let's say, open up a sort of possibility of let's say not being too contrary to the provisions of the convention.
Okay, thank you,
I'm talking as a lawyer now.
Yes, I understand that this is a hot topic also in your organization, and this will be discussed further. But taking a step back, how is it with respect to, and we had a question here from the audience, how is it with respect to different proveniences? You said priority should be given to the alpine tree species, which is all clear, but we also know that tree species growing in the alpine space are not only growing in the alpine space, but also outside. That means that also one way or another way to adapt to climate change as the major topic here would be to use different proveniences of the same regional tree species. This goes into the same direction, but could be probably a compromise. What's your...
Could be, but the compromise, let's say, meets a certain difficulty, because the article I quoted does not talk simply about native or non-native trees. It directly addresses the forest reproduction material, which should be used, and this material should be above all indigenous. So I don't know how this works in terms of biology, but there could be a difficulty.
Well, so I hope that also here in the future, science and the quite quick developments, as you also indicated, that particularly the Alpine space is very much prone to climate change, will help to probably reconsider the one or other article here. And I think if we and our project can be of help here, then this would be great.